Today we've got Xenoblade Chronicles, any version, not just this one, versus Nier Automata. Yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles is one of the most respected video games, RPGs of all time. And Nier Automata, there's even people who don't even consider the game as an RPG. It's an action RPG, hack and slash, but it's got to be for the people voting Xenoblade. Why do you think Xenoblade is better? Why? Or if you think Automata is better, why? Explain why. Remember, this is gonna be turned into a video on my main channel, and I'm gonna read your arguments, and those arguments are gonna make it to the video. Okay, so here's the first argument. Brian says, Xenoblade has an incredible level of variety, while Nier Automata is really two types of games and has very repetitive design. If it were just for the story, I'd say Nier. Okay, nice argument. So Inane Dream says, I wanted to like Xenoblade, but the gameplay felt like a chore between the unsatisfying combat and voluminous quantity of uninteresting side quests. Automata was an immensely unique game with very fun combat and spectacular soundtrack. Xenoblade had a superior world, but I didn't feel like exploring it as much. That's a very compelling argument, man. Okay, so I'm guessing Nier Automata is a better game for you. Ilias says, Nier Automata is not one of the best JRPGs. It is one of the best video games in general, with the big meanings such as a deep story, incredible soundtrack, awesome gameplay with a lot of different styles. Okay, good argument. Long says, in my opinion, Xenoblade Chronicles, any version, is better in terms of lore, character design, development, soundtrack. Nier Automata has the better gameplay, battle mechanics, and control. So, you're saying Xenoblade is the better game, right? Okay. Terry says, I think Nier Automata overstayed its welcome after ending A. Plus the characters I couldn't get into personally. I think the best part of it was the exploration aspect and the music. The combat of Nier Automata is serviceable for a beat 'em up, but it has its flaws. It could have been better. It could have been better in my opinion. Okay. Hidden Haki says, I personally enjoy a more linear story, so Xenoblade for me though, I hate games that are too big to wait long to get through Xenoblade. Diego says, I think Nier has great gameplay ideas, but it kind of fails short in some of them, like the shoot 'em up sections are visually cool but kind of a simple for a shoot 'em up. Okay, these are two colossus fighting each other, extremely popular, extremely beloved, and man, just felt like a really good match. Alright, so Melphis says Xenoblade Chronicles is cool because it's a mix of fantasy and science, and it takes place in a unique universe that is an endless ocean and the only worlds are two dead giants. Okay, so what you're saying is that Xenoblade Chronicles is better because it has a better world than Nier Automata. Okay. No Face Y'all says Xenoblade Chronicles is one of the rare games where the scope of the game is in a weak spot. It feels like this epic adventure from start to finish and feels like Final Fantasy XII but better. Okay. So the feeling of adventure, where Nier Automata doesn't have that feeling of adventure to you, okay? Xenoblade Chronicles is more traditional. That's what you're trying to say, right? That it's got this traditional style, this adventure that you start small and then you go into the world by yourself with your friends and the power of friendship, and I get it. Anthony says, Xenoblade has better world building, soundtrack, character design, but I think Nier is better because the lore is very unique, diverse gameplay, and one of those rare games that made you almost cry in some moments. Oh, so the story, you're giving priority to the story. It will help if Nier Automata didn't have so many great color schemes. So what you're saying is that Xenoblade Chronicles is a more colorful game, has better visuals, more appealing graphics, right? Whereas Nier Automata is such a dark game. That's what you're trying to say, Terry? Okay. You're on board with Nier Automata having the superior overall exploration. Okay. You also love having a party. Yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles has a party. Nier Automata is just you and 9S. Or 9S and 2B. Or A2 going solo. Yeah, you barely have any party members. Except the little machine that serves as the purpose of making conversation. Foxhound says the graphics of Nier are probably purposefully less colorful to reflect its main themes of nihilism, struggling to find purpose, existentialism, etc. It's purposefully bland. Peter Lee says the open world of Xenoblade at the time was mind-blowing. It's overdone now, but Xenoblade was one of the most mind-blowing JRPG worlds when it came out in terms of size and environment. So another person picking Xenoblade because of the world. Okay. Marcos says, I chose Nier. I like the fighting mechanics and destroying the robots. I played Xenoblade 1 and 2. I didn't like the combat, so it wasn't fun trying to avoid combat while exploring. I mean, you're right. You want to explore without having to worry about the enemies around you, and sometimes there were just too many enemies and you couldn't explore in peace. Okay, that's a good argument. So Mystery Kid says, I'm not a fan though on games having so many endings and needing to play it multiple times. And that's it, everybody. The poll has spoken. Xenoblade Chronicles 55%, Nier Automata 45%. So according to 70 people, Xenoblade Chronicles is the better game. Okay, so I'm gonna have to choose my pick now. Yes, I guess it was a bit predictable, but believe it or not, I'm choosing Nier Automata. Again, I'm not choosing this game because it lost, but because I think the story was much more impactful for me. I think the story in Xenoblade Chronicles is more about the lore and the world building, which is why a lot of people made an argument defending the world. And I get that, and I respect that. In terms of world building, it does have better world building than Nier Automata. But in terms of story, I tend to prefer dark stories. I tend to prefer more adult characters with adult situations. I'm not saying Xenoblade Chronicles isn't dark. It certainly has its adult stuff and dark stuff, but it's also about the feeling of adventure, the charismatic power of friendship, and forming a party and fighting the gods and stuff like that, whereas Nier Automata is way more psychological. And Nier Automata isn't just your average hack and slash. Yes, it's fast-paced, it's chaotic, and that's my type of action RPG. I don't really like technical action RPGs, a la Souls, for example. Not really a fan of those. So the hack and slash combat in Automata was more of my preferred style for action games. But I also believe it's a pretty difficult game. Sure, it's not as difficult as other action RPGs out there, but it can kick your ass if you underestimate it. Nier Automata is one of those games a lot of people underestimated and got their asses kicked. But I'm just saying that in terms of combat, I think I prefer... Well, the Xenoblade Chronicles is more creative. I'll give it that. But I think it's a tie. I can't choose. If I was just comparing the combat, I can't choose. I just love both combat systems equally. I think the story and characters are far more relatable to me personally and far more interesting, and they get much better development and more psychological and philosophical situations than in Xenoblade. Like I said, Xenoblade Chronicles has a good cast of characters and good story, but the story focuses more on the world and the universe it takes place in. Whereas Automata, it also focuses on the world and the tragedy of it and the plot twist, that we get to see halfway through the game when you come to realize what's really going on and what the hell have you been fighting for all this time. It's just more tragic and it's darker, and I tend to prefer stories like that. Of course, in fan service it beats it. There's no argument in there. No argument. The outfits in the Switch version of Xenoblade Chronicles are great. The girls are pretty easy to look at, but Nier Automata is one of the kings of fan service in video game history. It just doesn't compete. Graphics, I get what people were saying, that the graphics in Xenoblade Chronicles are more colorful, more compelling, more appealing, but I still prefer the darkness and gothic style of Nier Automata. It's just beautiful, more unique, and more conceptual. That's what I'm trying to say, and I think I tend to give preference to that. And, well, finally the soundtrack. That's another one that's kind of hard to choose. They're very different. Xenoblade Chronicles has this weird variety in genres mixed in together, whereas Automata is just this classic style. It's just like one or two genres in Nier Automata, right? And that's the entire game, and it's freaking beautiful. It's a masterpiece. I don't think I will ever be able to decide between each soundtrack, but I guess I am a little bit more leaning towards the Automata style of music, the Keiichi Okabe type of music, because it just blends in so well with the game and the story and the universe itself. So just for a little bit, I think I like the music a little bit more in Automata, but then the Xenoblade Chronicles soundtrack is a banger. So, once again, just like in the previous video, it was very hard for me to choose. These two games are just as fantastic. It's hard to choose which one is really the king, but I'm sticking to my guns. I think I like Nier Automata just a little bit more. That's all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time.